German archaeologist Klaus Schmidt visited the site and began digging. They realized what was really at this site.
What he discovered was mind-blowing.
The world's oldest temple holds a secret that was buried on purpose for 10,000 years. While the Sphinx and Stonehenge get all the fame, Gobekli Tepe is the real ground zero for human civilization. New analysis shows that the pillars here track a specific moment in time when the sky rained fire and the temperature crashed. I'm not gonna lie, the scale of this project is mind-blowing.
Now, many of these pillars have remarkable carvings on them, wonderful carvings and bas-reliefs of animals, birds, insects, all kinds of things. So to fashion those and carve them and set them up in these structures was just absolutely amazing.
These people were tracking the movement of the Earth through the stars with perfect exactness. They weren't just simple hunters, they were survivors with a message for the future. Hands down, this changes everything. Prehistoric nightmare. It is very hard to know what the true purpose of a place like Gobekli Tepe could be without looking at the hard data. To understand the scale of what people are dealing with here, you have to look at the numbers. When ancient history comes up, most minds jump to the Great Pyramids or the stone circles of Stonehenge. But here is the deal. When the first stone was laid at Stonehenge, Gobekli Tepe was already ancient history. It was already a ruin. This site is located in the Garis Mountains of southeastern Turkey, and it is massive. It consists of circular areas with huge T-shaped pillars arranged in perfect circles. Some of these pillars stand 18 feet tall and weigh as much as 40,000 pounds. This is a huge deal because the people who built this did not have metal tools or lasers. They did not have work animals like oxen or horses to pull the weight. Basically, these people moved limestone giants by hand uphill for hundreds of yards from the quarry. The engineering alone is enough to make any modern builder stop and wonder. To move a 40,000-pound stone block without wheels requires hundreds of men, heavy ropes, and a level of teamwork that hunters were not supposed to have. You also have to feed those hundreds of workers and give them water. The nearest water source is miles away from the site. This implies they had a logistics network and a supply chain. It implies a ranking of leaders and workers. This civilization appeared fully formed out of nowhere, which makes the old story of human progress look wrong. For a long time, the story was simple. We thought humans were just hunters for hundreds of thousands of years. We thought they stayed in small groups and slept in tents. We were told that farming came first, and only after we had extra food did we build temples. But Gobekli Tepe proves that the temple came first. The site is covered in carvings that are high-relief sculptures sticking out from the stone. You can see foxes, boars, cranes, scorpions, and vultures everywhere. For years, experts looked at these and said it was just for rituals or spirits. It was the safe answer that fit the books. But recently, the conversation has shifted, and that is putting it lightly. New research into the probability of these symbols has changed the game. These pillars are not just art. They are standing data centers. They contain information that was meant to last forever. If the buildings themselves are this complex, the message they hold must be even more important. The math suggests these people were tracking something much bigger than just the seasons. Decoding Pillar 43. The real mystery starts to unravel when you focus on one specific part of the site known as Pillar 43. This is often called the Vulture Stone. At first glance, it looks like a chaotic mix of animals and shapes. But when researchers started looking at it through the lens of math and astronomy, patterns emerged that were impossible to ignore. This was not just a collection of pretty pictures. This was a record of the sky. The scorpion on the stone represents the stars in the Scorpius group. The bull is Taurus, and the lion is Leo. These people were mapping the stars with an exactness that matches cultures that came thousands of years later. So why go to all this trouble? You do not drag 40,000-pound rocks up a hill and carve the stars into them just for fun. You do it because you need to remember something huge. What most people do not realize is that these carvings might be the oldest date ever recorded by humans. They are drawing the stars exactly as they looked at a very specific moment in time. The Earth has a slow wobble on its axis that takes 26,000 years to complete. This is called precession. Because of this wobble, the stars seem to move very slowly over centuries. By using modern computers to wind back the star map, we can find out when the sky looked like the carvings on the stone. The date that matches Pillar 43 is terrifying. It points directly to a moment when the world changed forever. It shows a time roughly 12,800 years ago. On these pillars, you also see distinct V-shapes. For a long time, people thought these were just marks to count animals caught in a hunt, but a closer look shows these are units of time. Each V represents a single day. When you add them up while keeping track of the moon and the sun, you get a system that tracks the whole year. This is a lunar solar calendar. It tracks the 12 moon months, which is about 354 days, and then adds the extra 11 days needed to stay in sync with the sun. History books say the Greeks were the first to do this, but the people at Gobekli Tepe did it thousands of years earlier. This means they understood how the Earth moved around the sun long before anyone thought it was possible. There is even a carving of a bird with a V shape around its neck like a necklace. Experts think this is a marker for the summer solstice. The bird represents the stars that were visible on the longest day of the year. Critics might say this is just a guess, but the math says otherwise. The chance of these animals matching the star groups of that era by accident is 1 in millions. It is like winning the lottery 3 times in a row. These pillars act like a rock-solid hard drive for ancient data. They prove that these people were obsessed with time because they knew the clock was ticking. They were watching the sky because they knew something was coming from above. Sky on fire. The date on the Vulture stone points exactly to the start of a dark time called the Younger Dryas. 12,800 years ago, the Earth was warming up after the Ice Age. Glaciers were melting and life was getting easier for humans. Then, almost overnight, the planet was hit by a deep freeze. Temperatures dropped by as much as 15 degrees in just 10 years. Giant animals like mammoths and saber-toothed cats vanished from the Earth. Scientists have argued for a long time about what caused this. Some thought it was ocean currents, but Gobekli Tepe gives us a better answer. The carvings show a headless figure, which in ancient art means mass death. Next to these figures are symbols that look like swarms of snakes or foxes. Researchers now believe these snakes are actually meteors. This supports the idea that a massive comet, maybe 60 miles wide, broke apart in space. As the Earth passed through the debris, we were bombarded by giant rocks. These fragments exploded in the air with the power of thousands of nuclear bombs. This caused huge fires that burned 10% of all the plants and trees on Earth. The smoke blocked the sun and made the world go dark and cold. This was the wall of fire that ended the Ice Age and started a nightmare. We have physical proof of this today. Scientists have found a layer of platinum in the soil from this exact time. Platinum is very rare on Earth, but common in comets. They also found tiny diamonds that only form under the extreme heat and pressure of a space impact. In the soil, there is something called the black mat. It is a thin layer of dark dirt found all over the world. Below that line, you find mammoth bones. Above that line, they are gone. It is a literal line of death in the history of the Earth. Gobekli Tepe is the memorial built by the people who survived that fire. They saw the sky turn black and watched the animals die. The H symbols and strange carvings on the stones might even represent the electrical storms that happened during the chaos. Some think the comet impact messed with the magnetic field of the planet, creating glowing shapes in the sky that looked like neon gods. The survivors realized they needed to keep this knowledge alive. They needed a way to tell future people that the stars were the clock for the next disaster. They chose the Jerez Mountains because the hill gives a perfect view of the southern sky. They carved the story into the bedrock so it could never be erased. This explains why farming started in this exact same area at the exact same time. The old world was gone and the animals were dead, so they had to learn to grow wheat to stay alive. The end of their world was actually the starting point for our civilization. The site wasn't just a temple, it was a survival manual for a new kind of human. Survival handbags. The most shocking part of this story is not just how they built the site, but how they ended it. They did not just walk away when they were done. They buried the whole place on purpose. They filled the enclosures with dirt and rocks until the pillars were completely covered. This was a massive job that took almost as much work as building the place. Some think they were trying to hide the old gods. Others believe they were making a time capsule. By burying the stones, they saved them from the wind and rain. If the pillars had stayed out in the open, the carvings would have rubbed away thousands of years ago. By covering them up, they ensured the message would wait for a civilization smart enough to dig it up and read the code. There are also the mysterious handbags. On top of Pillar 43, there are 3 carvings that look exactly like modern purses. You see these same bags in ancient art in Mexico, New Zealand, and Sumeria. How did cultures that never met all draw the same specific symbol? The theory is that these bags represent the seeds of knowledge carried by the survivors of the fire. They were the teachers who brought math, seeds, and building skills to the rest of the world. Even the wheat we eat today can be traced back to a mountain just 20 miles from Gobekli Tepe. This spot is the literal ground zero for the modern world. Modern technology like ground-penetrating radar shows that 90% of the site is still underground. We have only scratched the surface of what is there. The AI confirmation of the star maps is just the beginning. We are looking at a technology we do not fully understand yet. Some even suggest the stone circles were built to ring at certain sounds, perhaps even using sound to help lift the heavy rocks. While that sounds like a wild theory, we know that sound can move small things in labs today. Maybe the ancients knew a version of physics that we have forgotten. So here is the deal. We are finally reading the warning that was left for us 12,000 years ago. The builders of Gobekli Tepe used the stars as a language because they knew English or any other tongue would die out. The stars are the only thing that stays the same. They created a message that is time-proof. Now that we have found it, the real question is whether we are smart enough to listen. They spent centuries recording a disaster that reset humanity. They wanted us to know that the sky can be a minefield of rock and ice. It makes you wonder if we are missing a key detail that could save us from the next cycle. Is it possible that our entire history is just a series of restarts caused by the stars? Are we living in a quiet window between 2 fires? Let us know your wildest theories in the comments. If you love uncovering lost history, smash that like button and subscribe. You definitely do not want to miss our next deep dive into the unknown.